Now we go to a team who's had a lot of different news stories. That would be the Arizona Cardinals. They were second best. They were 11-6 last year, one game behind the Rams, surprisingly, and they lost to the Rams in the wild card game. That was a game where did not look very good offensively, especially for Kyler Murray. He got his biggest extension, and they've had some turnaround. This is kind of a big year, year 3, right? I think for both him and Cliff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we'll see what happens. But anyways, I'm gonna start with the departures. I feel like it's probably better to start with. They lost Chandler Jones, probably one of their bigger losses. Defensive tackle Jordan Phillips, linebacker Jordan Hicks, wide receiver Christian Kirk, who we all saw got his big contract with Jacksonville, and running back Chase Edmonds. And they managed to keep James Conner, so obviously they kept one of their two main backs. Brought in Marquise Hollywood Brown via trade their first round pick. Just throw it to you real quick. Do you know if there's any even rumblings if he's going to get punished or all? He just sped. I know it's like not. If you look at the details, he's like going 120-6. But
I have not seen anything that would
Okay.
indicate that he's going to get suspended or anything.
So I
Wouldn't
don't
be
think-
shocked if he gets fined.
Probably just fine. Anyways, so he will be a huge part of the offense. They brought him in. Brought in guard Will Henderson. They brought another running back, Darrell Williams from the Chiefs. Defensive tackle Antoine Woods, and then with their highest pick, they invested it in tight end Trey McBride. Also, keynote as of right now, DeAndre Hopkins was suspended for the first 6 games for PEDs, so they'll be missing him. So it makes more sense with the Hollywood trade. So yeah, John, do you expect this team? What do you expect from this team? Because I feel like this is make or break year, literally for these guys.
I'm not really sure. I'm kind of worried about the Cardinals because normally the way the Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury's career has gone, because this even extends back to when he was the coach of Texas Tech, is he does really great the first half of the year, and then when there's actually film on the stuff that he's doing and defensive coordinators can adjust, he starts to fall off a little bit towards the second half of the year. So the fact that they're going to not have DeAndre Hopkins those first 6 games, it worries me. At wide receiver, they still have Hollywood Brown, like you said. They still have Rondale Moore, Andy Isabella, Antoine Wesley, who had some moments last year. Hollywood Brown, I think, is just going to be thrust into a role that's going to be very reliant on his production because A.J. Green, he's only getting older, and we're going to have to see what Rondale Moore is. Last year, he didn't get a ton of playing time, and so there just wasn't a lot of opportunities to see what he could be. Maybe that's going to happen this year when Hopkins isn't playing. That just feels like a lot of unproven guys who have not been in the locker room for very long. Rondale Moore's second year, Hollywood Brown his first year, and even then he's coming from an offense that was so wildly different from what the Cardinals are going to do. Yes, Kyler's still a running quarterback, but the Ravens were so run heavy. Meanwhile, the Cardinals are going to run the air raid offense that Cliff Kingsbury is known for. So that concerns me. And then also, I think the biggest issue of concern for me is pass rush. Obviously, you lose Chandler Jones, a guy who has been a staple of that defense for quite some time, one of the best pass rushers in the league. There was this, dream of pairing him with J.J. Watt and what they could be. And then he leaves this offseason, and I don't feel like they really did much to replace him. So as of right now, it looks like on the depth chart, Zach Allen is going to be the guy that potentially steps into his spot. And then you have Marcus Golden maybe who can try and fill some of the production, but there's just not anybody that I'm super confident in that can be the other guy opposing J.J. Watt to put pressure on the quarterback. And I love J.J., but he's past his prime, so I don't expect him to be putting up 15 sacks this year. And so I'm just not sure how they're going to generate that pressure. I will put this caveat that I really love their defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, and so he's incredibly creative. I've seen plays where they don't even have a single defensive lineman. It's like 6 linebackers out there. And we know they have a lot of very fast, athletic linebackers. So maybe he can just get creative and try to generate pressure that way. But overall, usually the way that defenses are going to work is either you scheme up the pressure and your corners have to just be really good, or you scheme up the coverage and your defensive line has to be really good. I feel like they're just sort of mediocre all across the board at defense, and so you have to scheme up both. And I'm just not sure how well that's going to work in a conference or in a division where you're going to be going up against Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. So we'll see what happens. I still think the Cardinals are better than the Seahawks for sure, so they're not going to be last in this division. And I think they have enough talent, specifically with Kyler when Hopkins comes back on offense. James Conner is no slouch. You got Zach Ertz, Trey McBride. They have a lot of options on offense when it comes to weapons. And so I think they can absolutely potentially make noise and maybe make the playoffs. But like I said, I'm just worried about DeAndre Hopkins not playing and Cliff Kingsbury. So I'm not betting on it to be I'm not betting on the Cardinals to be a playoff team.
I'm with you. I got heavy concerns. Let me start with where you ended off, which is DeAndre Hopkins too. Like, and is for those that saw my wide receiver list, he wasn't on there, and he wasn't great last year. I know he dealt with injuries, and I'm just saying, like, I know he's trying to fight this PED thing, but most of these guys that got busted for PEDs haven't been the same guy once they've come back from their suspension. Look at Patrick Peterson, Julian Edelman. All of a sudden was, hasn't been the same. So got concerns. And then the Cliff Kingsbury thing too, I think really went under the radar during the whole Kyler Murray study clause thing, because I feel like yes, it just seems like that there's they could be maybe putting the blame on Kyler, or maybe part of the blame's on Kyler, and I think part of the blame should go on Cliff too, because like you said, it's been very real that second half where all of a sudden the Cardinals went from being amazing in the first half of the season, like we saw last season. I mean, they were beating on the Rams, they were beating on everybody, and then I feel like the turning point was like that Thursday night game in Green Bay. It was a tough loss. They were the better team, honestly. And then from there, it just seemed like teams kind of figured out what they wanted to do offensively, and especially in that playoff game. I mean, Kyler Murray was ineffective because, which is going to be concerned with their defense, because the Rams were able just to rush four and muddle the rush, and we're all over their concepts. So hopefully Cliff Kingsbury, for Kyler Murray and just Arizona fans' sake, can put together a full season of constantly innovating and staying ahead of the curve and just being creative and just being patient with the run. I think that will open up a lot more of their game. But I am concerned about their offensive line. It's not the greatest either, and you're going up in a division with Aaron Donald, and then we all know the 49ers D-line's really good too. So those are my concerns on that side of the ball. And then defensively, you really hit it well. Losing a premium edge rusher is like, I know he's going to dial up blitzes and such, but it's going to be dependent. Their success on defense to be extremely dependent on if Zaven Collins, who didn't play much last year, I assume he plays more this year since they let Jordan Hicks go. Isaiah Simmons, can he take the next step? They're putting a lot of pressure on those two guys, and obviously Budda Baker, which we know Budda can deliver. But yeah, I have concerns about their corners because, you play a San Francisco team that's going to keep probably pound the ball and then make you have to have island coverage on either side. Or if you dial up a crazy blitz and Kyle Shanahan's, and can pick it up, and they all of a sudden they have Deebo Samuel one-on-one, that's scary, and I don't think that their corners can match up. And that goes for most outside of their division too. So yeah, I got concerns with Arizona. I think they're going to be a middling, like 8-9, 9-8 team. One of those teams that they probably going to win most of the games they should, and probably go under 500 against teams that are equal or greater talent of them. We'll see what happens with them, but that's just, I don't have as many. I'm with you. I don't see them as playoff contenders in my eyes. True playoff contenders. They'll be in the conversation.
And I will say just real quick too, with the whole Kyler contract situation, all that stuff, there's just going to be drama this year in the media if they do poorly, and it's just going to happen. So there could be off the field distractions. And I know they already took it out of the contract, but I can already guarantee you that if Kyler Murray has some game where he goes out there, he has like 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, something like that, the media storm that week is going to be, well, Kyler, he's probably not studying. I mean, they don't have anything to hold him accountable.
He's playing Call of Duty. Check his hours.
Yeah, it'd be even worse because I know that I believe he streams on Twitch, so it'd be even worse if like there was record of him streaming that week and then he has a terrible game. It's going to become a whole big thing that could derail the season for a guy like Kyler, who he actively engages with the media a lot. And so I just don't know if he's going to be able to like tune all that stuff out, especially since aren't the Cardinals are the team that like they're allowed to have their phones on the sidelines, I believe.
He gives them phone breaks. That was like one of the
Cliff
things
Curry
when Cliff first came in. It's like, oh, they get phone breaks, and it was like this huge revolutionary thing.
And I don't think like that's inherently a good or bad thing, but it's just something that, like, if there's all these crazy media stories surrounding this team at
It'll
some
be
point,
used
like
as ammo.
yeah, exactly, and the leaders of the team need to say, hey, put all that away, lock in, like, don't listen to the media, just play football. And who knows? Like I said, they lost Chandler Jones. You lose, Hopkins isn't going to be there for the first 6 weeks, so there's a lot of room for potential media storms to happen.
Yeah, and so we'll see what happens. Obviously, you mentioned Kyler got his I think something's a little being brushed on their ex teammate. They were teammates at Oklahoma, so maybe they already have a better connection, and maybe it'll be a pretty seamless transition for Hollywood Brown. So we will see what happens if the Cardinals can take that next step, or if they're going to fall like John and I are kind of alluding to.